Okay, so this is going to be a fairly short session that talks about ways in which you might be able to use QR codes for either presentations in class or if you're doing a professional presentation at a conference or something similar. And in terms of QR codes, they date back to 1994. Seems like they've been around longer, but they were initially used just for labeling auto parts. They've expanded quite a bit. They were fading out a bit, and then we hit COVID, and then they were used everywhere for menus and other things. And QR codes are nothing more than images, I'm not sure why that was capitalized, that are converted to text by a QR scanner application. And I think most of you have probably experienced just aiming your phone at one of them, and it automatically detects the URL that it connects to, and it takes you right to that site. But we're going to focus more on how they're used. And specifically, we'll be talking about how we can use it to share resources, either with students or in some type of other presentation. So some of the most common educational uses of QR codes is to share links to a poll. If you're not using iClicker, if you're using some other type of polling software, which could be a Google form, it could be a quiz. I know some people will create short quizzes in Google, for example, and will use QR codes to let people access those. It could be used for a survey, could be used to connect to a spreadsheet that you want to share with participants in the audience or in your class. It could go to a forum, which could be used for any number of things. It could go to a video so that people would have the link to a video, a software download, or pretty much any electronic document. You can create a QR code that will link to it as long as there's a URL. And a really common use, and I've been doing this in most of the sessions I've done this for the last several years actually, is to copies of presentation slides. So if you're giving a presentation, you might want to let people take a copy of it, make a copy on their own of it so that they can edit it and do other things with it if they'd like. So we're going to go through first how to create a copy of the slides using Chrome. And actually, well, we'll go through the steps and then I'll just demonstrate it. You click on the share button in Chrome and set the status. Well, if you're in slides, you click on share for anything that's stored in Google. Get the set the status to be viewable by anyone with a link, unless you want to restrict it to say only people in the SUNY Oswego domain. Copy the link into this URL in a separate Chrome tab. Click on the three vertical dots in the upper right-hand corner of the browser, and then select Cast, Save, and Share, and then create QR code, and then either download the QR code, or copy and paste it into your slideshow, and so forth. Let's just do that. It's probably easier to do it than it is just to look at this. So, in fact, let's do it for this particular set of slides. So I'm in my Google Doc, my Google folder. I click share for the slideshow. I'm going to set this to anyone with a link, which it already is. And then I'm just going to copy that link. And once I've got that, I'm going to go. Now, you could do this and just share the slides, but then people are linking to your slides, and it's pretty easy for people to lose links to things like to slides that you share. If you want them to have their own copies of it, it's better to give them the ability to make a copy. So I'm going to paste in that URL that I just shared. And now I'm going to make one change to it. Where you see edit at the end, I'm going to delete that and change it to the word copy. And now it becomes a copyable URL. This is a way of converting any publicly shared document into something that allows other users to make a copy of it. And if you want to check that, well, we'll be doing that in a couple of ways, but I'll just paste that into the chat. And if you click on it, it will give you a copy of these slides, which will then be stored in your Google Drive account. And this is a really nice way of sharing materials. If you have some type of a template document that you want to use with students or an assignment that's done outside of Brightspace, you can always save it as a Google Doc, let students copy it, and do whatever they're supposed to do with the document now that they have the basic template, and they could send it back to you. I have students in one of my classes, quite several times in the last few years, work on book projects where we create a general template for the book as a Google Doc in terms of the format, the styles, and other things, the fonts, et cetera, the heading structures, and et cetera, and then save it as make it publicly shareable, add this little copy thing at the end, replacing that edit equals part. And then I share it with students. So each of the groups has their own template to start from so that they're all in at least the same initial format. There's a lot of areas where this could work. Or if you're doing lab reports, you could do something similar. If there's a standard format you use for it, you could just give the basic template to students in this form. Okay, so that's and then once you have this, so we've got this part here. We made copies of it. And we can also, if we're sharing this in a room where people have only smartphones, the QR code is the easiest way to do that, by just putting up the QR code and letting people scan it. But in most conference settings, for example, or in these workshops, or in classes, some students will have their smartphones with them, some others will have laptops with them. So another simple thing you can do, and if they're online, you could just post the URL in the chat, as I did a minute ago. But you can also create short URLs, and I think most of you probably have seen them, and many of you probably have used them. These are three of the biggest ones, tinyURL, Bitly, and Rebrandly, and each of them is fairly commonly used, and they have free versions. I think tinyURL you used to be able to use without even creating an account. Recently, it was asking me to log into my account, so I did. I don't pay for any of these because I don't do it that often, so I don't need to. But by doing this, you can create a short URL. In fact, I did one for this, one for this session. This is a link to the slides so that if people already have the slides, they can download another copy, which would be kind of irrelevant. But a tinyURL is a little bit shorter than that long URL that we saw at the top of the screen. And again, this gives people either the option of typing it in if they're on a laptop, or taking a picture of it if they're on, or aiming their camera at it and downloading it using a mobile device with a camera in that case. So it's a nice, easy way of sharing information. As I said, this is a pretty short presentation, but it can be a really convenient way of getting information out so that people who are connected on Zoom can get it through the URL. People who are in person can either type it in or get it using their phone camera. And I think that's pretty much it, actually. So any questions? This is probably the shortest presentation I'm doing.
I have a question for you, John. I have been, this is Dan. I have used them, you know, when we have open houses, admitted student days, we're trying to collect, student info. I just make a Google form and then I throw the QR out there, and it's worked really good. Um, Also my office hours, I have appointment slots set up and
Yeah.
calendar. It worked, and I have it posted outside my door. It works great. Um, One of the things I wondered if you knew, I know if you do it in Google or Chrome, um, you get the little dinosaur in the middle.
Yeah.
It's kind of it's cute and everything, and it's no big deal. But I was wondering if you know of a way that I can do it for free that doesn't maybe I don't know. I could put the Swigo logo in the middle or something. Just I'm trying to get rid of that little dinosaur. I think it might.
Yes,
It's
there's a
just,
few
it's a
ways.
little too cute for me. Yeah, yeah, but again, it's no big deal.
There's a few ways. There are a few other programs out there. Most of them won't allow you to do too much for free, but you have to pay for them to get other versions. However, one thing you could do is you could edit it. That square in the middle is not actually part of the code that's relevant, which is why it's.
Oh,
So you
okay.
could just use a graphic editor program and put something else there. That's one way of doing it. Another
Okay.
you could do is go into, and I haven't tried this, but I think they did this at the, well, I've seen it done. I don't remember if it was at the AI symposium we had recently. But let's go to gemini.google.com and I'm going to go back and grab that URL right here, which is a copy one. Again, you could just use a direct one for most purposes, but if you want to share something that people will have their own copy of, that's a good way to do it.
I
But
think you turned off your sharing, John. I don't
oh, I
see it
did.
anymore.
I'm sorry. Let me turn the sharing back on. So what I did is so far all I've done is I copied the URL that we had,
Yeah.
and I'm sharing the wrong screen. Let me try that again. Stop the share. Share the other screen. There we go. So what I did is I just copied the code we had up before for the copy version of it. And let's say I'm going to ask Gemini to a create a QR code for the following URL. But place what do we want to place in the middle of it?
I was just looking for like the generic, SUNY Oswego logo with the, Sheldon cupola
Okay.
up on top or something like that. Something easy.
So let's say place a version of, I'm not sure if this is going to work. Um, Logo, let's say, in place of the dinosaur. And then I'll paste that URL in and let's see if it'll do it.
Can't.
Oh, it's telling you how to do it. Oh, that's kind of lazy. Let's try that again with a with the pro version. Or let's bump up extended thinking and let's try that again. Because, the goal of this is to have this do the work for us so we don't
Right.
have to. Um,
Oh, it looks like it's doing it.
I mean, the other thing you could do is download it, because it may not know what the correct one is.
Code
Uh,
Monkey.
well, that's not very helpful. Hmm. Well, let's try one other thing then. Let's try ChatGPT because I've seen this being done.
Hmm.
And I'm going to try pasting it in. And oh, I should log in though, because I do have a paid account. That may be a little bit better. It's likely to be better. And one more time, paste that in. And I'm going to go to, yeah, we'll stay with the thinking model. And let's see what that will do. Okay, this looks like it might work. Ooh, it's actually thinking about
It,
copyright. That's something new for OpenAI. If this works, you could always create a GPT that does it. Then you could upload any URL to it and it would generate with it whatever image you want. And I should have said place a version, but it knew what I meant. Now it's probably trying to find the SUNY
The logo, yeah.
Lego logo. But if you
We
upload,
could,
you
yeah,
know,
we could, we
owners,
could, we could get that off of, what is it, publications or something. They
yeah.
have that. Yeah. Okay, you've given me some ideas. I can make it work. Play around with
Well,
it.
I'm curious now.
Oh, here it is.
There it is.
I knew you could do it, John.
See, well, ChatGPT does. At least the
Right,
paid
right.
version does. I'm not sure if it would work in the free version. If you want to try it, I'll just paste that prompt right into here. But most of the large language models can generate QR codes. I was surprised that Gemini didn't, because Gemini has some of the best image generation capabilities now.
All
So
right.
there we go. And it's even green. It
Yeah, yeah.
probably is even
Excellent.
the official, colors for the green logo.
That's
It
what I
looks
was
like.
looking for. Perfect. All
Okay.
right. Yeah, that's great. Thank you, John.
Now, I don't know if it works. If someone
Oh, I'll
wants to
scan it
stage
and
the
see.
camera on it, but I will do that too, just to be
Let me
sure.
see. Let me see with my camera.
We don't want to leave it hanging there.
You might need to scroll down a little bit, John.
Oh, okay, yeah, good point. Oh, and then we can edit it if we want.
I don't know. My phone isn't really getting it for some reason.
Well, maybe if we download it, maybe that stuff on the bottom might be cluttering it up a bit. Here we go. Let's try that.
Mm,
Well, it's not getting it for me either.
yeah, no joy for me.
Well, it's getting close.
We're getting closer.
It's getting closer. It looks like it may have trimmed off the bottom left, but I don't know. Maybe it broke. But in any case, you could always grab this, cut out that middle part, and just replace the dinosaur with that.
Sure.
So
Okay.
so we almost got it, but it didn't
I
work.
think I can do it. All right.
Okay. Any other questions or any other thoughts on how to ways in which we could use QR codes? For office hours or connection to your calendar is a great use. I know some teaching centers use them where they put these up at the start of all sessions. It goes to a little form where people register that they're there. We don't always have as much luck in trying to get people to submit things like that, and we do try to keep track of attendance, so we don't do it that way. But but I know some places do.
Nah, I just appreciate you showing how to do. I've never actually made my own QR code before, so it's just cool to see.
Yeah, the easiest is just grabbing it from Google, but then you do get that dinosaur. Now, one other thing is some of the other sites that create QR codes or that create short URLs will have them expire after a year or two. So if you're using the same one for multiple years, make sure you check it before you share it again. But so far, none of the things I created using Google for QR codes have expired. Google used to have a URL shortener, but they discontinued that, and I think all of those or many of those have expired. I don't know if they all have. Okay, any other
All
questions?
right.
Okay, well, that's that then. Good seeing everybody.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, thank
Thanks.
you.